My name is Ben.
And I'm Norah.
And we are your hosts of the Too Vague podcast this week. One word, two hosts, stories, trivia, and video games. And traffic on the ones and sevens.
Okay.
Also the weather, right?
When's the weather? Yeah. The weather's constant. It's always.
It's on every single number of the clock. Unfortunately, in Arizona.
Yes,
because
exactly.
that means 100-degree temperatures. But how are things out there for you?
It's up and down. The weather today was beautiful in the low to mid 70s. It's just been great.
What about the traffic?
Well, there's these really fast cars running around Grant Park. I don't know. NASCAR this weekend.
Not like Formula One stuff?
They call it NASCAR.
Okay, gotcha.
Because at first I thought it was more like a Grand Prix, but they call it NASCAR.
What else is going on for you? Anything exciting?
Just all kinds of things, because, it's been like almost a year since I was on.
It's been a while since your last episode. I'm glad we got a chance to get you back here.
So should I start at the beginning?
Well, no.
Well, first...
We don't need to catch up on a year of what Norah's been up to. Are you playing any new games? Probably not.
No, I'm getting tired of the ones I play. So, but anyway, Anna and I are going to Alaska.
Oh yeah, that's
on a cruise.
Yeah,
at the end of August and early September.
Cool.
And that should be nice. I'm just kind of going along with her. I never had a big desire to go there, but I'm sure once I go there, I will love it.
Yeah, send me some salmon.
Okay, I'll do that if I can. Yeah.
Fresh or smoked salmon.
Smoked might be better because of sitting it in your office building for a day or 6.
Not to mention Arizona. I mean, come on. But it's going to be September, so it won't be as bad.
It'll be monsooned.
When am I going to get that smoked salmon? Monsoon.
Hey, Mon. Yeah. How have you been?
I've been doing all right. I've been doing my thing, doing the show and
good.
Maintaining my mental health. Excited about going to PAX this year. Looks like I'm going to be attending as a member of the press again. That should be fun.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
You meet people and you get to see different games in action or before they're out and all that. But the people you meet, I think, is the best part about it.
A lot of times it is. Last year, I tried to focus on just the games. And I think this year, I want to do a little bit of both. I want to meet more people who are there attending.
Yes.
Make an effort to meet those folks and find out what they're excited about.
Good idea.
And then maybe make some contacts there that can come on the show and talk about what they're passionate about, be it video games or otherwise.
And if they're playing games other than what they've been playing for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
When, same game as...
That was the Mahjong. That's what it was.
Mahjong, except I don't play that much. I'm playing a bubble shooter game now.
Oh.
Over and over and over. I can get a higher score than that.
Bubble shooter. So does that mean that there is a thing at the bottom and you shoot bubbles of a certain color and then you match them? And
right.
The origin of that is by a company called Tato. The game that they made was called, It's from the Bubble Bobble series, but I think it's Puzzle Bobble or something.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Puzzle Bobble. Yeah, that's it. Puzzle Bobble was the name of the arcade game where you've got the little thing you can bounce the balls off the walls and you can connect them. Right. And it's a very common sort of match 3 type of game, too.
Yeah, and I've played different ones since I've been playing games on the computer. Some of them I liked very much, and then I lost them. They just sort of disappeared. They're all a little different, but...
oh, yeah, that's what it was called. It was called Bust a Move originally, and then they changed it to Puzzle Bobble.
Oh, dear.
When it came out in 1994.
I'd say I've been playing it for 30 years. Yeah.
Have you been busting a move?
Oh, yeah. That's why my hips hurt and my knees hurt. I've been busting too many moves.
The moves are busting you.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's cool. I am excited to talk about a game. Let me just start this review by saying a big thank you to Robert Lashley, the self-proclaimed PR ninja from Team Critical Hit, who provided me with a review key. Yeah, I'm a little late on this review because the key I got was for the PlayStation 5. And PlayStation has a very strict certification process when it comes to doing updates and patches. So it takes a little time for those things to actually happen. And that's not a fault of the company or anything. It's just the way things work. There was an issue that I ran into later in the game that stopped me from continuing, but I finally got through it. So now let's talk about it. I sent you a video about it. TEVI. TEVI.
TEVI, yeah. This is the one that reminded me of Mario Brothers.
Exactly. It's a classic sort of platformer.
Okay. I'm sure there's different things, but it's jumping up and down. And
she is jumping up and down. Her name is TEVI. She is a anthropomorphic bunny rabbit girl.
Yes.
Which we can talk about this a little bit. You listened to the last episode, which was aesthetic.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get into it, do you have any questions about the last episode on aesthetic?
Well, a couple things. I just comments before I talk about something else. I loved a comment where you said the word everything. She said the word anything. A table, if you set things on it. I love that. You know my house. Is there a flat surface? Yeah, but you can't see them.
Yep.
And I love the idea of you making friendship bracelets.
That's part of.
I have some thread you can use.
No,
you know.
no, I'm going to pass on that. That whole friendship bracelet. But that is something from.
Oh, okay.
That was Year 2K's kind of thing. Besides all the alternative-y stuff that I used to be engaged with back when I was.
Right.
With my flock of seagulls haircut and my multiple piercings and all that.
Well, the other thing that I was curious about was you kept talking about romancing.
Oh, yeah.
Characters or items. I mean, they didn't have to be human or anything. And I thought, is that like dating them?
Yes, it's kind of like dating them. There is sort of a story development component in some of these games. You probably heard us talk about the game Mass Effect. This game, Baldur's Gate 3, is another one of those games. Dragon Age is another one.
Okay. Or is that Dragon Age?
Well, right. I just do that to ruffle some feathers. I know. Kind of say that. Part of the gameplay is you're meeting people and having conversations with them. It's not quite like a dating simulator, which is a different sort of genre. It is a genre that came into being in Japan, where they were focusing on what girls, quote unquote, stereotypically would enjoy. And it was basically, what items do you give the person? How do you dress for them? What gifts you give them? And then through those things, you would develop your relationship. It was very, very consumerism kind of focused. It's like, hey, look, I bought you this thing. And it's like, oh, I don't like that. Or, oh, I love that. Or whatever, right?
Okay.
But that genre of game, I don't know if it was in part an inspiration or not, but one of the things that happens in a lot of games that have stories these days, there's branching options that you have to get involved with, date, or sexually get involved with characters.
Okay.
One of the ones that is the most quote-unquote graphic of them is Baldur's Gate 3. Did you have a chance to watch that video?
Yes, I did.
Yes, the bear.
Yes, I did. Yeah. I was kind of like the squirrel. Wait, I don't want to see anymore.
No kidding, right. Like in a fantasy world, relationships and sex is a different sort of thing. And part of our discussion with Cheyenne, they are a self-proclaimed expert on relationships and games, right? And part of it, I think, is, well, how much of it is wanting to see the scene? How much of it is like a real sort of interest, a dating sort of thing? And much of what games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age do is it's based on conversations that you have mostly. It's not so much like the Japanese model where it's gifts or things that you give the other player.
Interesting. Do they give you choices of how to start a conversation?
Yes.
I mean, I noticed in some of the things they have like 3 or 4 choices.
Mm-hmm.
And you pick one and then it goes on from there.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to pick the right thing. Sometimes also there are events that are tied into it. So like if you do something that's against what the other character is all about, then you won't get one of the options that will take you that direction.
Okay.
Baldur's Gate 3 is a more advanced kind of game as far as role-playing is concerned. There are just so many different outcomes in that game.
Okay.
Something like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, the storyline is more linear.
Okay.
You have some choice as to what you're doing in any situation to progress the story, but it's mostly like beginning, middle, end kind of thing. And whereas Baldur's Gate 3 it's got so many different endings that you can kind of experiment with what you do. And so it's more of a traditional role-playing game.
Okay.
Is that something that you were interested in? Developing relationships with fictional characters?
I don't think I'd go for a bear.
Depends on the kind of bear you're talking about, really. But
True, a bear. I did used to read a little science fiction fantasy a long time ago, and I read a couple of books where there was relationships with different beings, I guess, not necessarily humans.
Right.
And I thought it was a good story, good stories, a couple of them. I was interested in them. Certainly didn't put me off.
Right. It's a part of character development, and as long as it impacts some part of the story, I think that can be an interesting avenue.
Right.
And then the one that we talked about that I introduced Cheyenne to, which is called Boyfriend Dungeon, you date things that are people and weapons at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And as you get to know them and level them up, there are different sort of powers that they do when you're going into a dungeon. Part of the game is that. If I wanted to develop a story or develop a game around meeting people and romance, it would have to be the main focus.
Well, you're story oriented.
That's true.
And so that's what you want, a storyline. Maybe a few little leaves here and there, but branches.
But I've had ideas of like, those side-scroll and beat-em-up or isometric 3D beat-em-up games. I was thinking about one.
I don't know that.
Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or arcade games where it's just, okay. Where you're just going around and you're beating things up and they're enemies and stuff.
I
had this idea once of sort of that kind of thing where the way the date went is what would determine which enemies and which environment you would battle these things in, because you were trying to deal with yourself, right? You were trying to get over a fear or get over a doubt or something like that. It would be an interesting way to approach a relationship development game that's a unique kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they just play it for the cutscenes. They want to see the cutscenes, even if it's just two people about to get busy or whatever. Some people just want to see that.
So why not just get a porn, rent a porn film?
See, now,
honestly,
I think that's one of the things that if it's part of the story, it's fine. If it's something that's for just the spectacle of it.
Oh, that's the way it's been with movies for forever. That people had to understand. Yeah, that had to be in there because as opposed to just look. People
are shying away from a lot of the romantic scenes in movies that you used to see in the 80s and 90s. Just for the shock of it, it's kind of like, yeah, we know, let's move on to the next piece of the story. Unless it's a focal point or important in some way. There seems to be less of that now.
Well, I think we're more used to a lot of stuff. People who watch are younger, different generation. More or less. And I think we are really more used to things like that. Things that were banned, Hays Code and all that, books and movies and everything. Now people just accept that. It's part of the movie. It's nothing special.
It's all available online anyway now. You can find it online. If there's something that you want to see, you can see it online. And that is both good and bad, right?
Right.
If you've got that to see, well, then when you go to a movie, you probably want something else. You probably want something that's more story or action focused.
I think the internet probably did help that along with, like I said, younger people with their different ideas, good ideas. But I think the internet helped it along too.
Absolutely. So is that all you have for the...
Pretty much, yeah.
That kind of connects with the bunny girl thing.
TEVI. Now, see, I thought she was a girl with a bunny hat on.
She is, actually.
Okay.
All the other people in the world are anthropomorphic, human-like animals. She is actually a human.
Okay.
There are other humans in the world, too, that you learn as you go on through the story.
Okay. Oh, so she's trying to fit in.
Well, no, because her father, the professor who's obsessed with bunnies...
Okay.
Is obsessed with rabbits for some reason, and you don't really find out.
I just got 2 minutes of this. So.
Yeah, your father, who's a kind of a professor who taught you how to be a genius mechanic,
of course,
and build things. He's sort of your adopted parent.
Okay.
And he's just infatuated with bunnies. Now, there is a connection with the previous game made by this same company. The company is Cray Spirit.
Yes, I noticed that.
Developed by Cray Spirit, Ginma Yu, and Ein Lee. Published by Cray Spirit Neverland Entertainment for the PC version, and PM Studios Incorporated for the PlayStation and Switch versions. The previous game that Cray Spirit worked on was a game called Rabi-Ribi. 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 Rabi-Ribi.
Yeah, okay. Ribi.
Also, in the TEVI game, there are these sequences where you're fighting characters and they're spraying bullets, and you have to dodge these patterns of bullets that are radiating or going back and forth. That's called Bullet Hell. Mostly ship combat type games or shooter games, but they kind of merge this concept with a platformer. Part of a platformer in its more recent forms. They call them Metroidvanias, but I don't like using that. It's basically sort of a two-dimensional kind of map. There are certain obstacles that you can't overcome until you've found another object or another power, and then you can go back to those places and explore the other areas. That is pretty much what TEVI is. It's sort of a Metroidvania bullet hell mashup.
Okay.
And Rabi-Ribi was pretty much the same kind of combo. In that game, I'm trying to say this with a straight face. I'm reading this description from Wikipedia. It says, Irina, a pet rabbit, wakes up in a cardboard box in an apartment building one day, having been transformed into a human girl. She is led by a voice to a familiar room, which takes Irina to her home of Rabi-Ribi Island. She tries to find her way back to Rabi-Ribi Town in order to find out why she has become a human, meeting the fairy Ribbon along the way, who accompanies her through her adventure.
Okay.
That just sounds cutesy weird, right?
It does.
Anthropomorphization of animals. There's a side to it. I was going to do a whole investigation or just talk about where the bunny girl came from. It seems like a lot of that is Playboy, and it's not inherently bad. It's got a duality to it. Some people assign it to sort of a sexual kind of thing as far as the bunny suit, and other people, it's not inherently sexual or anything. It's just cutesy or whatever. And there's some chibi influence in this. Chibi being hyperdeformation, where the head is much larger than the body kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Yes.
But Playboy has a reputation. People can be offended by things or say things are hypersexualized, but what does that actually mean at the end of the day? Is it that they're pointing out things that are sexual in a game, or is it just something like, well, we've got cute little rabbit characters that have bunny ears, or cute little human characters with bunny ears, and that's kind of innocuous?
From the eyes of the beholder, kind of. If somebody thinks it's sexual and bad, that's their problem, even though they have some influence on whether things should be banned or changed or whatever, which is unfortunate.
It's also their opinion too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
whether it's right or wrong, it's people get different things from media. You can also put yourself in the shoes of an observer, a third party or something. Try to, as much as you can, but then there are human emotions and connections that will support what your views are, I think. Things that we watch as far as people say, oh, this movie from the 80s is cringe, or
oh, okay.
It is a snapshot, right?
Yeah.
Just like I think that a lot of credit is given to Playboy and Hugh Hefner for sexual revolution being at sort of a turning point. What are your thoughts on Playboy and its...
I just read the articles. That
was always the joke. But you know what? They actually did have excellent articles.
Good articles, yeah.
Yeah. Well thought out journalistic integrity type of investigative journalism sort of stuff. Really an interesting dichotomy.
During that day and age when it came into my, like I knew it was there, it was early 60s, high school for me. And it was still stuff that you stuck under your bed, if you were a guy.
Or if you were a girl, I mean, you never
Except,
know.
no, if you were a girl, you didn't admit at that age.
Well, that's true, but you still hid it under your bed, though.
Yeah, okay. You got me. Oh, anyway, it was, quote, dirty back then.
Mm-hmm.
But things were so different, the way people perceived so many things. And I don't listen. For me, I was always very accepting of so many things, even in high school. Sexuality, whatever people were, I didn't care.
It's okay as long as it's not hurting anyone within reason, right?
Right.
That part of the 70s, there was a sexual revolution going on where things were more accepting. Talking about those things was more accepting than was in your parents' time.
Definitely.
You kept all that stuff secret. That was not something you spoke about, right?
Or if you did it with a kind of disgusted look or something.
Right. Or only around people you trusted or whatever,
Correct.
Now, there is an interesting duality in Playboy that I think is very important in culture. There is sort of a revolution component to it, but then there's also a sexualization, hypersexualization of women, things that were bad about it. It's not as easy as saying they were positive or negative. They had both.
There's so much. I mean, the Me Too movement, what caused that? And this is what some people think, and I don't really know. Were the pictures of naked women and suggestive photos of semi-naked women, did they get men in power to think that it was okay to do whatever they did? That's what some people think.
That really depends on the person.
Which person?
The person who was viewing these pictures or whatever.
Right,
I think a lot of the Me Too movement didn't revolve around that so much as mistreatment.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. The mistreatment may have been a misinterpretation from the producers of movies or from the CEOs of companies. They misinterpreted women are sexual. Look, right here.
Right. Either that or it was a power thing. It was a power dynamic. You've seen
definitely.
You see that in relationships that end badly, too. There is sort of a I have the power kind of thing. So
definitely.
You've got the person who is wanting to please or wanting to make their mark or wanting to survive in that scenario.
Survive, yes.
Yeah. In certain circumstances, maybe in role play, but it's not reality and it's not treating people with disrespect, right? I think that's the core of that whole thing is treat people with respect.
And I've been giving you suppositions. It's not necessarily my idea, but it's what I think other people thought. It's kind of a heavy.
It's a really heavy
We're
subject.
into heavy stuff here.
We should probably transition out of this heavy stuff. Let me just say also, the magazine had short stories written by really well-known novelists. Arthur C. Clarke, Ian Fleming, Nabokov.
Silverstein.
Yeah, Shel Silverstein did regular cartoons.
But he also wrote. whether he wrote for Playboy, I don't know.
It's, Roald Dahl. It's people that we know. Not a lot of women, but that might just be a sign of the times, I think.
Right.
It is something that it's an important piece of the development of what this means, but it could have happened independently. There's not really a connection between the girl dressed like a bunny in Playboy clubs and the girl dressed like a bunny in the game TEVI. They're two different things, I think. There is nuance.
I believe, and I hope that the younger generation, the Zoomers, maybe the millennials too, have a healthier outlook than my parents, the boomers, even some of the Generation X. Because of their parents, they had that hangover of their opinions about that stuff. But I think younger people, it's loosening up. I don't know.
I think the Gen X had to find their adulthood at a much younger age than millennials. And now Gen Z is way more accepting of people for what they are, I think. In my opinion, from what I've seen
I think so.
And who I've interacted with.
I love that.
Acceptance is wonderful. But back to the...
Funny.
Back to the bullet hell Metroidvania. So you see that there are various characters that you run into or enemies that you fight. One of the cool things about this character, TEVI, is that as you progress through the levels, you will find hidden objects that will be money or sigils or these potions.
What is sigils? I don't know that word.
It's just basically like a rune, archaic, a seal, literary, a sign or symbol, noun, an inscribed or painted symbol considered to have magical power. That's a sigil.
Spell it.
S-I-G-I-L, sigil.
S-I-G-I-L. I'll be darned, a new word. At my age, wow.
You're not a magic fantasy kind of person, then we'll probably mention it more in fantasy stuff.
Pretty good with words.
That's true. There are these little symbol things that you find that you can customize your character so they will give you more powers, basically tweak the way you play the game. So some things will be focused on defense, some things will be focused on increasing your hit points, so on and so forth. These different things are customizable throughout the game. As you level up TEVI through fighting things and finding hidden objects, you will build the ability to put more sigils on your character. You have a collection of sigils that you find throughout the game and buy at various stores, and those can assist you in fighting bosses or traversing a level or getting through certain areas. Very customizable, almost to a fault, but we'll save that for the 3 ups, 3 downs section. You'll find other objects throughout the level other than these sigils and gold. You'll also find these bunny potions, which will increase your stats. So not only leveling up your character and fighting bosses increases your stats, but also buying these potions and finding these potions as you go. So you just basically travel the world looking for these gears with 2 characters that you meet. You're jailed when you start this game, but you escape with their help. There's a demon and an angel. You're exploring the world of Az, A-Z. Not the world of Arizona, the world of Az. TEVI has moves herself that are like combos where you attack in certain ways. You can do uppercuts, all sorts of normal combos. But then these 2 characters that you meet, Celia and Sable. Celia is the angel that wears a belt around her
boobs.
Well, bosom.
I saw the picture. Yeah, right.
Yes, that's an interesting style choice, I think.
Thought it would be uncomfortable.
What is that aesthetic?
Leather aesthetic? I don't know.
I mean, if you got to strap them down. So anyway, so you've got Celia and you've got Sable, who is the little demon boy. And what they do is they accompany you on this adventure, but they are in these little...
The bubbles?
Yes, they are the bubbles. They are in the little mechanical bubbles that...
I was going to ask you what those were around her.
Okay, so those are the shooter component of this game. So you're going through doing your moves, but you can also switch the way these things fire. The left bumper represents switching over to Celia, and then the right represents switching over to Sable. And they have different powers and different super moves that you can use during boss fights or during the normal part of the game as you're exploring.
Okay.
So it's like your shooting mechanic.
Interesting.
And those are also affected by the sigils that will impact the way those things shoot and how useful they are during combat. That is basically the game. The video shows it all pretty much as far as traversing the different biomes. There's a lot of exploration as far as maps and trying to find the secrets. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
In looking at a review of this, a different one than you sent me, there's these very anime-looking characters talking, conversing with each other and this and that.
Right.
And like in the background, there's the little cartoon characters that represent those characters. Now, when you actually play the game, you're playing with the little cartoon characters.
You are controlling the characters that are the Mario Brother size characters, the chibi characters with the large heads and the smaller bodies.
Yes. And so the animes are just sort of like for a story.
Yes, those are your story beats. The anime portions they've got for in-between quests that give you larger portions of the story. They're told through these anime panels. And then also when you have talks with various other characters, it doesn't show their chibi version.
Right.
It shows their anime version as you're talking. But then when you do the fights, you go to these smaller characters. Yep. Excellent question.
Well, it's something other people might be aware of. I just haven't come across that before. So I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. It makes sense in the game world, right? You don't want a human proportion size character that you can't really...
Yeah, right.
Some games do it and do it well, but in something that is supposed to be cutesy and lighthearted, it makes sense. The story is not cutesy and lighthearted, by the way. But anyway.
Interesting.
I'm going to go into my 3 ups and 3 downs.
Okay.
I'm not doing the percentages thing anymore. You know, people like different things for different reasons. So who cares what I think? I'm going to give my opinion in my 3 ups and 3 downs.
Right.
I don't need to put a score to it. I have certain things at the end where I say, if you enjoy this type of game, you'll enjoy this game, kind of thing. That's how I'm going to do it from here on out.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. And you will buy this game, right?
Yeah, along with the PlayStation 5 to play it on.
Well, let me just say it doesn't require a PlayStation 5 to play it on. The graphics should have told you that. But I mean, that's the thing too. It was really well made. One of the things I'm going to say is one of my ups for the game is it is a well-made platformer that has all these different things where you can go back to different areas. There's enough to explore and find and give you new wrinkles to find other areas as you go on through the game. The map shows you whether or not you've uncovered the secret of that area. So like if there is a hexagon that is blank, that indicates that you haven't found something there.
Yeah.
And you have to go through that level. And each square doesn't have to be the same size. I don't know how to explain this without confusing you, but each square just represents going from left to right, top to bottom in a screen. The height and the width can vary, but it's just traversing an area.
Right.
And some of them encompass multiple squares, others don't, but it's not confusing in any way because it shows on the map how they're connected. It also will show you on the map if you've got a direction that you haven't gone before. If there's a little connector that shows that it's up and you haven't revealed that part of the map yet, you know that there's something up there.
Yeah.
As far as a well-made platformer style game, absolutely amazing. Another up, this is kind of going to be sort of twofold, but I like the customizability of your character. One of the things that I like is being able to play the game the way I like to play the game. And that includes finding these sigils and putting them on my character so they behave in a way that is appropriate for either exploring the environment or a particular boss that you fight. I love the customizability. The third up, it is smooth, graphically amazing, looks beautiful, behaves like you would want any kind of retro looking platformer to behave. It is top to bottom a very well made game.
I like retro. That was my first impression when I saw this.
And that's the balance, is they put those anime panels in there to make it feel more modern. And you've got the voices. This is a good enough point to start my downs. The voices are only in Japanese.
Oh.
Which is fine. I can read. That's okay.
Right.
I mean, it's not a huge down. Maybe it's a mini down. But that is one of the things. It's like the vocals or the voice acting. I think it's good. It seems like it's good, but I don't know because it's not it's not in English.
Right.
The second down I'm going to say is, you know how I mentioned I like the customizability?
Yes.
There is a sweet spot that you can hit or overshoot. And I think this game overshot it a little bit.
Oh.
And the reason I say that is there are 250 of these sigils that have varying point levels depending on how effective they are or whatever that you use. Like you get a number of points. The customizability is great, but I had some trouble in certain areas getting the right build of TEVI. You know, it was easy to do it after a couple of replays, but it was just there were too many customizations.
Yeah.
I think that needed some more work. Hit that sweet spot. Maybe 150 would have been okay, but 250 just too much.
I understand that.
On another mini down, some quality of life things as far as maps. The map was so scattered. The space between the things on the map were so large. Even if you zoomed out all the way, it was very difficult to identify things and what you needed to do. When you got it to a point where you could see the different squares, you had to drag the map all over the place to see where you wanted to go to next. And there were not a lot of easy ways to scroll through different things specifically. Like if I wanted to see all the stores and just cycle through all the stores, it didn't have that kind of option in the map. It would have been very helpful with how big the map is. And with a big map comes a big story. That's my other criticism of this game, is it's just too big.
Okay.
For what it was, the whole playthrough was enjoyable, but I lost the story somewhere in there. I don't know if it was the fault of the story or if it was the length of the story.
Yeah.
Or just how big the whole thing was. People sometimes like big and exploring things, but you can strike a balance between telling a cohesive story and doing the exploration parts.
Right.
And it didn't seem like it hit that balance. Those are my criticisms of the game. So do you have any questions about any of the ups or downs?
Not really. I can see what you're saying. Since I haven't played the game, it's kind of hard to do it. But I can see what you're saying about some of them, certainly. And I just got a picture of a map here. And it's just part of a map. Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, I can send you the whole thing with the...
That's okay.
It's pretty vast.
Well, just a little bit that I see. And I know that it goes on because I can see lines going down and the little squares fading out, Yeah. So it's just a small part of it. And it's...
Here, that is 100% of the map. Let me know when you have a chance to take a look at it.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. I can see some of the problems there.
That's a lot. And you can barely see the squares, but each one of those, I would say approximately about 6 to 10 square height and 10 to 20 width on most of those different levels. And they vary depending.
Yeah.
And each color represents a different zone or area type. So it is a lot to figure out and a lot to explore. Almost too big.
But can you skip things? Like if you didn't want to collect all 250 or whatever sigils.
Yeah, you don't have to collect them, but they're worth experience. So that's the thing. You don't...
Okay, will you be able to get through some of the biomes or whatever you want to call them? Would you be able to get through all of them without these strengths?
I would say that would be a challenge. Based on
So,
the way that I had played, what I did was I'd get to a point where it was tough for me to get past a boss, and then I would explore and build up my stats so I could look for all the different hidden objects and all those things, as many as I could find, then go back to the boss and see how I would play against it. Usually it was a lot easier with a wider selection of sigils and higher stats. A lot easier.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can forgo the sigils if you want and just look for the money and the bunny potions. That will increase your level. You don't have to customize your sigils, but it definitely helps.
Right.
I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for. It is.
It is.
Depending on your skill level, it may or may not be necessary. If you're more of a beginner, it might be a lot harder. I am pretty seasoned veteran when it comes to playing these things, so it doesn't seem very hard to me. I just have it in my head. This is my process of getting through.
Can you skip through things or not go through all of the rooms, biomes, whatever they are? Does one lead to another?
Essentially, they do. That's the thing. Each one of those segments, in general, will have a boss fight that you have to go through in the story.
Okay.
Most of them do. There's some that are just towns that you visit to do little side missions and things, which it doesn't have a lot of. I mean, that's probably good with how large the story is, that there's not a ton of extra stuff to do because there's plenty to do in the game.
Right. Okay. And that's the kind of thing that might put me off. I like a whole bunch of stuff about this.
Yeah.
I like the characters. I like the platform, whatever you call that.
A platform, yeah, it's just a
that?
platform game. Yeah, that's what it is, because you're jumping from platform to platform. That's
right. But it would get too involved, and at some point, I'd just go, okay, I'm back to shooting bubbles again. You know what I mean? It would be too much for me, personally.
That is exactly where I'm at, too, with this. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to do a complete review, I may have put it down. I may have.
Okay.
It was good enough in the fun of just playing through and doing the exploration to keep me going. Unfortunately, the story was just too sprawling. Some reviewers have said that it's forgettable. I think there are bits. If they would have focused more on character development, just the 3 characters, maybe that would have been different. But with that comes a larger game, too, I think. You know?
Right.
So it's a balancing act. I don't think they quite got it. I'm not 100%, you know what I mean?
I agree, even though I haven't played it.
Yeah.
I agree they could do some tweaking.
Yeah. I think editing is what we need to do with this game.
Yeah.
It also has to do with generations, I think, too. You and I are from generations that are familiar with arcade experiences. And those experiences are small. And when you finish a game in the arcade, it's no more than an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on the game. Yep. But it's very short term. And then the next generation got larger. And then the next generation got larger. And now it's a point where we've got these hundreds of hour experiences.
Right.
Just some genres or some types of games, it just doesn't fit. Sometimes less is more.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that TEVI, in all its wonderful game mechanics and fun and exploration,
right.
That's one of the things that I think just didn't quite hit it with me. That being said, do check it out if you are a fan of platform games that have a lot of depth. There are ways that you can make the game more challenging. Like Norah said, you can just not find the sigils or not use or equip the sigils. That will make it more challenging. Or if you just play the story all from beginning to end, kind of a speedrun kind of way, that's going to be much more challenging. So there are some variations you can do for that. Once you complete the game, I believe there is sort of a way that you can make it harder. So there's a hardness level sort of adjustment that you can make. I played it through just the normal level, which is why, I just like to play those games that way myself. Don't make it super easy. Unless the story is the focus. If I'm playing a game for the story only, then yeah, I'll make adjustments to the difficulty. But this is it was fun and I enjoyed the mechanics. It just seemed like the cohesion of things didn't hit the mark for me, but I can see where a lot of people would think that this is amazing. If you like any kind of bullet hell shooter and the genre of Metroidvania, you'll absolutely love this game. If you are looking for something with a deep story and lore, this is not the game for that. I think they made an attempt to make a very compelling story, but I don't think it fit the presentation, if you understand what I'm saying. It's a very dark story conclusion that's very dramatic. There's kind of a mismatch there. The chibi look and the very dramatic things that happen in the game just don't quite mesh for me. So, if you're looking for something that's fun and has many, many hours of playtime and is pretty cheap considering half the cost of a normal game, check it out. And also if you want to look for something that's more nostalgic as far as your earlier Nintendo 64 two-dimensional generations. So yeah, those are my thoughts about the game TEVI. Once again, thank you to the PR Ninja for letting me try this game ahead of launch. It was really enjoyed my time with it. So thank you, Norah, for joining us. I really appreciate you, and hopefully we'll get to do it again very shortly. He said knowingly.
Yeah, I've missed it. I've missed being.
You missed it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So
I was going to say that's good, but I guess it's not that's good. I'm glad that we can do it again.
I know what you're saying, yes. I will look forward to it.
And if you're interested in what Norah's wearing, the Too Vague podcast design is available on TeePublic. I will put the link in the show notes if you're interested in getting.
Yeah.
What did you end up getting?
I got a magnet for my refrigerator. But
Okay.
I got a hoodie, a gray hoodie with
nice.
On the back it says Too Vague Podcast Classic, and the red T-shirt.
Okay. Very cool.
Just like a Coca-Cola can.
Exactly. Oh
Coke
no, you
classic.
mean
Yes.
You mean a carbonated beverage.
Oh yes, a brown carbonated beverage
that may or may not have cocaine in it.
Not anymore.
As far as we know, I mean, everyone raves about that Mexican Coke. I don't know what the whole hubbub's
there might
all
be
about,
it.
but
Yeah,
you never know.
yeah.
Thank you, audience, for joining us on this week's episode of the Too Vague Podcast. My name is Ben.
And I'm Norah.
And we've been your hosts. Have a wonderful night. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Too Vague listeners. This is Andrew, your Partly Robot Industries guy, letting you know that if you want to get one of those Too Vague podcast t-shirts, here is the URL to type into the thingy on the internet. It's teepublic.com/user/partly-robot-industries. That's right. teepublic.com/user/partly-robot-industries. If that's not confusing enough, Ben might put in a link in the show notes. Follow it.